All right, guys, so these are going to be trade recaps for the week of January 20th. This was a short week that had only 4 trading days, but still one of my biggest trading weeks of the year, actually the biggest trading week of the year with only 4 days, which is pretty awesome. Now, I'm going to go over everything, the stats for the year so far, the exact trades that I took, the way that I managed these, why I took them. And I'm going to show you guys an entry model that has been absolutely killing it for me. And this is something you guys could use to absolutely print over the next few weeks. As long as this continues to work, there's so much money to be made on these entries. And I'm going to show you the exact entry model. So let's start off with the stats so you guys can see exactly what we're looking like so far. Up about $170,000 for the month. You can see my equity curve has been kind of trending to the upside. There was a shorter period of kind of drawdown right here earlier in the month, right about here where things were a little bit flat, but then the last 2 weeks have been very strong. So you can see been working really well. Now my profit factor is about a 5.5. This did go up over the month. My trade win percentage did go down because I did take a loss this week, which we'll review. And then my average win to loss trade basically stayed the same. Now you guys know I am trying to get this a little bit higher to about a 2.5 is my goal for the year. And if I could do that, I think my performance would get even better. Now you can see over the last 4 days, every single day was a winning day. I did have one loss today, or this week, but overall, every single day was a winning day. So let's get into the trade recaps. I'll show you guys exactly the trades that I took, how I got into the trade, and exactly what you could do to basically have similar results. Obviously not in terms of the dollar amount, and that doesn't really matter, but just in terms of being able to take the right entries, know exactly where you should be looking to get in on stocks, and exactly how you can manage your positions. So let's start off with the first trade, which was on the ticker USAR. This is the biggest trade of the year so far, and I probably think this is gonna be like my top 5 or top 10 biggest trades of the year. The reason why is because this is one that I sized up on. So over the last week or so, I have been looking to size up on stocks because my portfolio has been performing very well. And this is how I decide if I'm going to size up on things or if my size is going to stay the same. I use something called progressive exposure. What this means is whenever I start winning and I have, let's say, 1 winning trade, 2 winning trades, 3, 4, 5, and I start noticing that the market is conducive to my trading strategy and it's making me a lot of money, that is when I want to be more aggressive in the market. So like I said in last week's recap, the more the market is showing me that it's ready to go higher, and the more the trades that I take are working, the more it's likely that there's a lot of follow through and the more I want to size up. So this was actually my first trade that I sized up for the month, and it was on the ticker USAR. Now, a lot of people are looking for, breakouts and breaks of ranges and things like that. And, this is something that I teach 90% of the time. But when the market starts to show us that breakouts aren't really working as well as before, you have to start pivoting and learning new entry models, which is exactly what I've been using, and it's been an absolute blessing. What this is called is an undercut. So we talked about this a little bit last week, but I want to show and go really in detail on these this week. So the entry that I took on this ticker was on this day right here on Friday, and it was an undercut trade. So what an undercut basically means is a stock will set up within a base like so. So this is a base here on the ticker USAR. It basically hasn't really been able to make new highs, really hasn't been able to make new lows, and you want to mark those out, right? You want to mark out the lows, you want to mark out the highs. And then you also want to look at the previous day's low, right? So this is the previous day's low. You could see USAR on this day on Friday got under this day's low right here. It got under the 8 EMA and it tapped right at the 50 and 21 EMAs. This is called an undercut. So it undercuts last day's low, it undercuts the base lows, and then also it undercuts the moving averages. So it's got like a three-way undercut, right? Which is exactly what we want to see. Now the undercut, the most important part is the undercut needs to be at a key level. We either have to undercut a moving average, a key level of support on the daily time frame, or the previous day's low could work as well. Now looking at the daily, we mark out the previous day's low. You could see it undercut that, and we go down to the lower time frames now. So what I usually like to use is either the 15-minute or the 30-minute for my undercuts. The reason why is because on the 30-minute, you could use a 30-minute pivot. What that means is basically the first green candle that is printed after a few like red candles in a row, you're gonna use that as your entry criteria. So the moment the stock takes out the high, that's gonna be your entry, and that's exactly what I did on USAR. So when I started noticing that it undercut right here, waited for the 30-minute to form the first green candle, which it did right there, I marked out the high, and the moment we started breaking the high right there, that is where I took my entry. And then you can see the next day, obviously it gapped up, made a really nice move higher, and then pushed up through this spot. And since then I've been swinging this thing and it's been moving absolutely beautifully and continuing to push to the upside. And you could see, yes, you could have taken it for a breakout right here, but you would have gotten stopped out pretty much the next day. Like if you bought it right here, the next day it would have came down and stopped you out. But since I got such a low entry right here, even when it pulled back, it did not stop me out because my entry was so good. And then you could see over the last 4 days, this thing's up about 32%. I bought options, of course, and I'm up about 200% on this trade. Now, as long as it doesn't break under the AEMA, this is something I'm going to continue to hold, because if you look at the weekly, it's just now breaking out of a massive base. It doesn't really have a lot of resistance until the high here at $43. So there's a lot of room for this one to continue to go higher, which obviously will lead us to a massive continuation move. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more highs on this thing, and there's no reason to sell early, right? My entry strategy is buying and then letting the stock play out. I don't want to sell too early. I want to let the trade play out. I want to let it continue to move higher. And I'm only going to sell when my rules and my selling rules are hit, which are either hit a level of resistance. So this would technically be a level of resistance all the way up here at the high for a target, or breaks the moving averages. So if it breaks under the 8, 21, and 50 EMAs, that could be a selling kind of a look to potentially sell, right? So still in this trade, you could see even now, right during the day, it's continuing to go higher. There has been no reason to sell. Even if it pops a little bit, no reason to sell. Let the trade play out. Let your sell rules guide you on trades like this. So biggest trade of the year, probably going to be one of the biggest trades of the year at the end of the year if it plays out the way that I think it will. This is something I can even consider to roll over at this point and look maybe to get a farther out strike or buy shares and just let it play out. But you can see beautiful, beautiful move on the ticker USAR. Now, the next trade that I took was on the ticker SERV, and this was my loss for the week. And it was honestly a bigger loss than I would have wanted to take. And unfortunately, this is a part of trading, right? You're not always going to have winners every single day. And sometimes you're going to have losers that are a little bit bigger than you want it to be. And this is a part of swing trading as well, because sometimes you will have gap downs. So I want to talk about two things on this trade right here. First of all, my entry criteria on this trade was a kind of retest of the AEMA, right? And it wasn't a bad trade necessarily by any means. The only thing something like this was missing, and this is something that I have adapted to ever since that trade, is waiting for an undercut, right? So you can actually notice that every single time it tested the AEMA, it didn't undercut below the previous day's low, right? So right here was actually technically the undercut of the previous day's low, but I bought it on this day right here, where it just retested the 8 EMA. What we would have wanted to see is an undercut of the previous day's low, then the reclaim of the 8 EMA, and I think this would have been a better trade that way. So let's go down to the lower time frame so I could show you guys exactly where I bought it. It tested the 8 EMA, and going to the 30-minute time frame, you could start noticing that what did it do? It formed the 30-minute pivot, right? So right here, it ended up forming the first 30-minute candle that was green, and then right here it broke above. This was my entry right there. My stop loss went to the low here at 13.76, and then this was up a decent amount at some point, I think about maybe 15 to 20%. The issue is that it did not hit my target. And this is something that I'm very, very adamant about when it comes to trading. I'm never going to trim a stock or take off a position unless it either hits my stop or my target, because everything in between is literally noise. If you have a plan and you don't follow it, what's the point of even having a plan in the first place? So that's exactly what I did on this one right here. It ended up pushing off of my entry, but it never hit my target, so I never trimmed. And then this day right here, it obviously gaps down and breaks under my stop, right? So this is another thing that I want to talk about and cover, how to manage a position if it gaps down below your stop loss. What I usually do is, if a stock gaps down below my stop loss, what I do is I wait for the first 5-minute candle to form. This is called a 5-minute orb. So right here, you can see the stock gaps down below my stop. First 5 minutes, it forms potentially a hammer, right? I mark out the low and I mark out the high of the candle. As long as it doesn't break the low of the 5-minute candle that was formed right at the open, then I'm not going to be, taking the trade off. Now, right here, you can see it ended up pushing off the morning. It could have reversed really well, and it would have been a nice reversal, and it would have kept me in the trade, but it ended up taking out the low right here. So right when it took out the 5-minute orb, I got out of the trade, And it was actually a pretty good exit because you can see later on it just continues to kind of just pull in, right? And when a stock gaps down like this and it's not able to reclaim the gap, it's usually not a great look. You could see this thing is setting up now, but it's too choppy, and now we're going to wait to see if we can undercut and reclaim and set that up. And this is why it's so important to wait for these undercuts and reclaims for your entries. If you don't wait for these, you are going to get a pretty bad entry, and buying at the highs right now is just not the way to go about it. And this goes into this next trade right here, which was on ASTS, which was another undercut and reclaim trade. So this was one that was a super strong stock. One thing I will preface, you want to make sure that the undercuts that you're looking for on the stocks is on the best stock. So for example, ASTS has been a great stock. Serve, even though it's not been as strong this week, it was a really good stock the week before when I was looking for the undercut on it, which is very, very important. So you can see ASTS was a leading stock. It was breaking out higher right here. It broke out. This day right here kind of formed a little bit of a doji. Boom. Next day right here goes down about 13%. Now look at what it does. It taps the 8 EMA. It undercuts this level, right? So previous breakout level right here and the previous low. So previous day's low, and then it starts to curl back off this spot right here. So what do? Go down to the 30-minute time frame, and notice what happens on the 30-minute time frame. Red candle, basically red candle, and then boom, first green candle is printed. That is gonna be what you wanna wait for. So first green candle is printed. Do not enter until the candle gets the high taken out. So right here, the high is taken out, right? It undercuts and reclaims the 8 EMA. And then this is going to be your entry right here. This is exactly where I bought this thing. I put my stop loss at the low, and then you could see I ended up swinging it, and it went about 20% off my buy spot with options about 100%. And it's still continuing to go higher. And likely, as long as the 8 EMA catches up, this thing will eventually set up to break out higher, right? So this could still be a trade that wants to continue to go higher and kind of push up to the upside. And this goes into the next trade as well, which was a very, very similar one, another undercut and reclaim. You want to be trading the best stocks. So RKLB, ASTS, these have been some of the best stocks. And what I mean by that is they've been trending, right? This is something or a stock that's been going up for the last basically 4 weeks. And it's had plenty of undercuts, and it has this personality of continuing to do the same kind of thing when it comes to undercuts. So this is actually one that I recapped last week on this move right here. This is another undercut that I took this week. So basically doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. And this is basically trading, right? Doing more of what works every single day and less of what doesn't. That's exactly what I did here on RKLB. So you should already kind of see the undercut. What it was obviously the stock was forming a nice little flag. It undercut the 8 EMA right here. And this was the low that I was watching. So right here on this day, it undercuts the low. We go down to the 30-minute time frame right here. You could see we have a red candle, first green candle right here after the undercut. You mark the high, boom, 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 like this. Right here, it breaks above. This is going to be your entry. Your stop loss goes to the low, but you could see it never tapped. And then you're looking to target either the previous high right here or the previous day's high would work right there as well, which was exactly what I did. So this is a lot of, kind of a spin on swing trading and breakout trading. I'm still trading breakouts here and there, but I want to see the breakout come after an undercut. So for example, right here on RKLB, we had the undercut, then the breakout, and it made a super, super nice move. Now I want to show you guys a setup from today as well. Look at APLD. This is one that the whole Discord caught. This had a super nice undercut. So I know there's a lot on my chart right now. Let's clean this up so I can show you guys again really quickly. You could see on the daily time frame, this is setting up a flag, right? So very similar to that RKLB setup, set up in a tight flag. And then you could see it just kind of makes these wicks off the lows. Right here, it undercuts the previous day's low, go down to the 30-minute, boom, boom, boom. You could see the first green 30-minute candle. Next one right here, when it breaks above, could be your entry. Or even if you want to take it just right when it reclaims, which would have been right here, was really, really good. And then this thing ends up ripping. And now the breakout is likely going to work because it trapped so many sellers down here, went the other way and made a massive push higher, which is exactly what you want to see. And this is the way to trade right now. And that doesn't mean that breakouts aren't working or they won't work in the future, but you want to adapt to what the market gives you. When the market gives you conditions that aren't conducive or very, very conducive to breakouts, you have to be able to adapt and play whatever is working. And right now, undercuts have been working really well. This is a concept that I've been talking about for a month now already, since they have been working. If you start to pick up on something that's working, you have to stick to it, right? If something is working, it's working for a reason. These have been working great. And what my motto has been, and something that I think can totally transform your trading right now, think about where you are going to enter a stock, right? So for example, APLD, I would have usually entered right here, right? And then my stop loss would have been at the low right there. Try to flip that concept. So instead of entering where your entry was going to be, actually try to look to enter where your stop would have been on that trade. So my stop would have been right here at the low. That's actually where you should be looking to enter, because usually the best entries are where everyone has their stop loss, right? Especially when the market environment is like this. So that could be your entry, and you can kind of transform that a little bit. And that way you're able to catch these undercuts and these really nice moves in the market. So only 4 trades on the week, guys, but overall a $77,000 week, mainly off the USAR trade. It's because I sized that one bigger. And this also shows you don't need to have a million trades on stocks, right? You need to have a few good trades, and 1 or 2 really, really big moves can make your whole year or your whole month. So I really hope you guys enjoy this recap. I hope you learned something from it. Leave a like down below and let me know if you want to see any other videos or a specific video on undercuts and rallies. I really appreciate the support. Subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.